Marsha Johnson, born July 27, 1944, is an activist known for her work with the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community in New York City. She is most famously known for her participation in the Stonewall riots. She is known for not fearing the judgment of others who tend to ridicule her for her masculine features. Along with fellow transgender activist Sylvia Rivera, she founded the Street Transvestite, now transgender, Action Revolutionaries, also known as STAR. STAR's goal is to help others in the transgender community who are facing the struggles of an ignorant society.
Greta Gustava Martella is the co-founder and executive director of Trans Lifeline. Ms. Martella has drawn on her own experience with suicidality to create a resource that is able to respond to the needs of the trans community. The goal of Trans Lifeline is to help lower the high rate of suicide among transgender individuals and empower transgender people to help each other. She herself is a transgender woman. Prior to creating Trans Lifeline, Ms. Martella worked as a software engineer alongside her transition buddy, Nina Chaubal. They are now married.
Lana Wachowski, one of the Wachowski siblings, is an acclaimed screenwriter, director, and producer. She, along with her brother Andy, directed the Matrix series, wrote and produced V for Vendetta, Speed Racer, Cloud Atlas, Jupiter Ascending, and Sense8. Lana came out as trans in 2012, becoming the first major Hollywood director to come out. She has received a vast array of awards and nominations for her work.
Bruce Voller was a 20th century American biologist and AIDS researcher who pioneered the use of nanoxyl 9 as a spermicide and topical virus transmission preventative. He established the Mariposa Foundation to conduct human sexuality research, and he co-founded the National Gay Task Force and served as its executive director for 5 years. At the time of his death, his research centered on the reliability of various brands of condoms in preventing the spread of diseases and on viral leakage studies for the recently approved female condom. Jazz Jennings was born on October 6, 2000, and is one of the youngest publicly documented people that identifies as gender dysphoric, and was the youngest to become a national transgender figure. When Jazz was 4 years old, she identified herself as female as opposed to male. She has spoken a lot about the topic of growing up as a transgender girl and founded a company called Purple Rainbow Tales in 2013 to raise money for transgender children. She currently has a YouTube channel and a TLC series that describes the obstacles that she faced over the years, especially in her teenage years.
Langston Hughes was an American novelist, playwright, poet, columnist, and social activist. Best known for his literary contributions to the Harlem Renaissance, Hughes was one of the first authors to experiment with jazz poetry. From his most memorable essay, The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, to his most famous poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, Hughes' work celebrated the reality of black life in America and helped to unify the diverse community living in Harlem in the 1920s and 1930s.
Alison Bechdel, born 1960, is an American cartoonist best known for the long-running comic strip Dykes to Watch Out For, and for the graphic memoir Fun Home, which won a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Comic Book, a Lambda Book Award, an Eisner Award, the Publishing Triangle's Judy Gran Nonfiction Award, and was nominated for a National Book Critics Circle Award.
Tammy Suzanne Baldwin is the junior Democratic U.S. Senator from Wisconsin. She served as the U.S. Representative from Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District from 1999 to 2013, while also serving 3 terms in the Wisconsin Assembly in the 78th District. In the 2012 U.S. Senate race, Baldwin defeated the Republican candidate and former Wisconsin Governor Tommy Thompson. She's the first woman elected to represent Wisconsin in the Senate and the first openly gay U.S. Senator in history. As of 2012, Baldwin's voting record makes her one of the most liberal members of Congress.
Michael Sam is a football defensive end for the Montreal Alouettes of the Canadian Football League, CFL. He played college football for the University of Missouri and was drafted by the St. Louis Rams of the National Football League, NFL, in the 7th round of the 2014 NFL Draft. Sam was a conscientious All-American and Southeastern Conference Defensive Player of the Year as a senior at Missouri. After completing his college football career, Sam publicly came out as gay. He became the first publicly gay player to be drafted in the NFL. The Rams cut him at the end of training. He also spent time on the Dallas Cowboys practice squad before being waived. He signed with the Alouettes before the 2015 season. He became the first publicly gay player to play in a CFL. Citing personal reasons, he left the team after his debut and was placed on Montreal's suspended list.
Harvey Milk was the first openly gay man to be elected to public office in California when he won an election for San Francisco Board of Supervisors. He helped push through and pass a stringent gay rights ordinance for the city of San Francisco. He was murdered in San Francisco City Hall, along with Mayor George Moscone, by Dan White, a former city supervisor, on November 27, 1978.
Alan Turing was a British pioneering computer scientist, mathematician, logician, cryptanalyst, theoretical biologist, and marathon and ultra-distance runner. He was most notable for the creation of the Turing machine in World War II. Later, he was punished for being homosexual and carrying on a relationship with another man. He was prescribed drugs to control his libido and eventually committed suicide in 1954.
Ron Buckmeyer is an openly gay professor of mathematics at Occidental College and a program director for the National Science Foundation. Originally from the West Indies, Buckmeyer earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York. He currently lives in Los Angeles, where he works on projects aimed at improving the teaching and learning of mathematics in area K-12 schools. In 2011, he was named the Educator of the Year by the National Organization of Gay and Lesbian Scientists and Technical Professionals at the American Association for the Advancement of Science annual meeting in Washington, D.C. His work with the NSF aims to promote excellence in an undergraduate education in STEM.
Deirdre McCloskey, born 1942, is a distinguished professor of economics, history, English, and communications, and adjunct professor of philosophy and classics at the University of Illinois, Chicago. She has written 14 books and published more than 350 articles on economic theory and history, philosophy, rhetoric, feminism, ethics, and law. In 1995, at the age of 52, she began her transition from male to female and published Crossings, a memoir, in 1999 about the 3-year process.
John A. Perez, born 1969, is a union organizer and politician from Los Angeles who has been the Speaker of the California State Assembly since March 1, 2010. He is the first openly GLBTQ Speaker of the California State Assembly and one of the only 3 GLBTQ people who have been elected to lead a state legislative chamber.
Tegan and Sarah are a Canadian pop duo. They are twins and are both openly gay. They didn't come out until after high school, although Sarah had been dating a girl for the duration of it. They have done work with various LGBTQ organizations and promoted gay rights in both Canada and the United States.
Tom Waddell was a doctor, a U.S. Army paratrooper, and a track and field athlete in the 1968 Olympic Games. He moved to San Francisco in the 1970s, and in 1976, he and his partner were the first gay couple to appear on the cover of a major national magazine, People magazine. In the 1980s, Waddell became famous for founding the Gay Games, an international sporting event based on the Olympics that has been held every 4 years since its debut in 1982 in San Francisco.
Irshad Manjin is an award-winning Muslim author, feminist, and advocate for Islamic reform. Born in Uganda, Manjin was immigrated with her family to Canada in 1973 as political refugees. In 1998, she hosted City TV's Queer Television, the world's first commercial broadcast exploring the lives of gays and lesbians. She produced the Emmy-nominated PBS documentary Faith Without Fear, which follows her journey to reconcile faith and human rights. In 2007, she was named one of the country's 50 most powerful gays and lesbians by Out magazine. The Jakarta Post in Indonesia, which has the world's largest Muslim population, named her one of the 3 Muslim women creating positive change in Islam. She travels the world speaking about religion, LGBT issues, and human rights.
Gilbert Baker, born 1951, is an artist and civil rights activist who designed the rainbow flag as a symbol of the diversity of the GLBTQ community. The first rainbow flag was used in the 1978 San Francisco Pride Parade, and the flag has been the most popular symbol of GLBTQ pride since then.
Chris Colfer is an actor and author who is openly gay. He also played an openly gay character on the television show Glee and used the show to speak to the LGBT community, as well as being an active supporter of the It Gets Better campaign and the Trevor Project. Colfer also was a co-chair for the Elton John AIDS Foundation Academy Award Party in 2013 and 2014. In addition to his philanthropic work in the LGBTQ community, Colfer helps many charities and organizations.
In 1897, Magnus Hirschfeld, a German doctor who studied human sexuality, founded the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, the first organization in history established to fight for GLBTQ equality.
Ray Castro was one of those arrested at Stonewall. He fought back against police, knocking 2 of them to the ground. He also paid for the legal defense of a lesbian who was arrested alongside him, true to what his friends knew as his warm-hearted and generous nature. Said Castro of the historic fight for civil rights, "A lot of people, especially the young ones, have no inkling what Stonewall is. They think gay pride is just a big party. None of this would have been possible if it wasn't for 1969. I had no idea that I was going to be involved in history making. I would do it all over again."
Bob Kohler was considered a father figure to many young trans people on Christopher Street, including Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. He was the epitome of an ally. Brand Fenner, a friend of Kohler's and founder of Fierce, a group for gay youths of color, told the New York Times of the iconic activist. He added, "He was able to tell us a history that had been denied to us." For that reason, Kohler had a following of gay African Americans and Latinos who looked up to him as a role model, mentor, and friend. An advocate for not only gay rights but also for trans rights, queer youth, HIV/AIDS education and prevention, and issues of race. Kohler seemed to embody Martin Luther King Jr.'s maxim that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, said Kohler after being arrested in 1999 for protesting the police shooting of an African immigrant, Amadou Diallo. "I do not equate my oppression with the oppression of blacks and Latinos. You can't. It's not the same struggle. But it is one struggle. And if my being here as a longtime gay activist can influence other people in the gay community, it's worth getting arrested." It was the second night of the Stonewall riots that Bob and others held the first meeting of the Gay Liberation Front. Bob is often credited for bringing a more militant approach to the gay rights movement. Christy Ellen Kane is a non-gendered activist who is fighting for the legal and social recognition of genders outside of the societal gender system. Christy has fought for a number of rights in the UK, such as adding a non-gender option to the UK census. Other notable causes that Christy has fought for are gender-neutral passports and non-gender-specific options for personal identification documentation.
Caitlyn Jenner is a transgender woman who previously competed in the Olympics and recently came out in June 2015. She was originally born William Bruce Jenner on October 28, 1949, and shortly after coming out, she officially changed her name and gender. She has now become one of the most famous and recognized individuals in the LGBT community for bringing attention to gender dysphoria, violence against trans women, and other transgender issues. Jenner is also the most famous LGBT athlete for her previous competition in the Olympics.
Meera Krishnan is a neuropsychologist and healthcare leader, and she directs the Center for Autism at Hope Network, West Michigan's leading autism evaluation and treatment program. She is active on the local, state, and national levels, including a board advisory role with the American Association for Children's Residential Centers, and co-chair of the American Psychological Association's Division 44 Committee for Transgender People and Gender Diversity. Mira has presented at the First Event and Southern Comfort conferences on workplace transition, coming out, success, and she is also an active blogger on LGBTQIA+ and feminist issues. She lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and is in a committed relationship with trans man Terry Jordan. She came out publicly as trans in July 2014.
Annie Leibovitz, born 1949, is an American photographer who began her career working for Rolling Stone magazine after it was first launched in 1970. Renowned for her photographs of celebrities, Leibovitz took portrait photographs of everyone from Queen Elizabeth II to the last professional photograph of John Lennon, taken only hours before his murder. Leibovitz is well known for her long-term relationship with the late author, filmmaker, and activist Susan Sontag.
Greg Louganis, born 1960, is an American Olympian diver who is the only male diver to win gold for diving in 2 consecutive Olympic Games, 1984 and 1988. In his 1995 autobiography, Breaking the Surface, he came out as both gay and HIV positive, after which all but one of his corporate sponsors dropped him. He was also featured in a documentary titled Back on Board in 2014. He is now a diving coach and he mentored divers at the 2012 Olympic Games in London.
Chelsea Manning is a former U.S. Army soldier convicted for violations of the Espionage Act after leaking information to WikiLeaks, a non-profit media leak site. She came out as trans the day after her sentencing and began hormone therapy. Since her imprisonment, she has been viewed as both a traitor and the equivalent of the 21st century version of the Tiananmen Tank Man. Sir Elton John is an English composer and singer. He has sold over 300 million records and had more than 30 albums. Since 1988, when he came out as gay, he's been an advocate for LGBT rights and gay marriage. He's currently married to David Furnish. He has won 6 Grammys, 5 Brit Awards, a Golden Globe, a Tony, and other awards over his 40-year career.
Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky, May 7, 1840, to November 6, 1893, was a gay Russian composer, most famously known for classical works such as Swan Lake, The Nutcracker, and many others. It is believed that he drew inspiration for his compositions from his experiences with his sexuality. Until recently, information about Tchaikovsky's sexuality was kept from the public by Russian musicologists, and much of it is still kept privately in Russian archives with no English translations. Over 60,000 Russian citizens applied for a ticket to attend his funeral, which was paid for by the Tsar. Tchaikovsky is credited with being one of the most influential composers of the 19th century.